What does a husband do when his wife turns a drunken dare into a public wound? Beg for privacy, or hand her a calm envelope in a lobby full of witnesses? How far can a woman push "it was only once" before the room answers with process instead of pity? Why does a single measured line, "he said he would handle it properly," sound louder than any scream? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Ianthe Vale, and I told myself one night could not change a life if I kept my story neat. I said, drinks blur lines and friends help you walk straight, and that should count for something. At home, 2 mugs waited on opposite counters like stubborn people. Rowan opened his laptop, and a spreadsheet with only initials and dates glowed on the table. He said we could talk later. I said later felt cold. His phone lit with a small reminder and went dark. In the hallway closet, a tiny USB sat taped under a folder labeled taxes with today's date written on its side. I told myself he loved order more than drama. A printer near the wall woke and slid out a single blank page, as if the room wanted to speak without words. I touched my wrist where my pulse ran fast and whispered that, after a few drinks, means less harm. Rowan said respect keeps families steady. I said forgiveness keeps them warm. A calendar alert flashed paper drop and disappeared. On the guest bed, the cover held one sharp crease, like a held breath. I promised I would fix the air before anyone else entered it. I woke before the alarm and told myself the worst had already passed. I boiled water and set 2 mugs on the counter like a truce. The balcony door was open a finger's width, and the air made a thin river across the tile. Rowan came from the hallway with his phone and a quiet face. He said good morning. I said good morning. He opened his laptop at the table. A spreadsheet with narrow columns, and only initials and dates lit the room like a small lighthouse. I said it looked like route planning. He said it helped him think. I said lists were his way of loving. He did not respond. The kettle clicked and began to hum. I told myself I could still frame everything as a strain that turned into a stumble, not a choice. I thought of Miles's grin and pushed the thought away like a drawer that should stay shut. I poured water and watched steam write brief lines on the window. Rowan's phone flashed, then darkened. I saw a word that looked like harbor and a time near the start of the day. He pressed the side button until the light died. I said we should talk before work. He said later would be better. I said later sounded cold. He said later sounded careful. I said, careful can bruise. He looked at the mug I set near him and did not reach for it. I walked to the hallway closet and pretended to look for a charger. On the top shelf sat a folder labeled taxes, a little forward, like it wanted to be noticed. I set it straight. Under it, a tiny USB was taped down with clear tape. Someone had written today's date on its side in small, neat letters. I told myself he was digitizing receipts because order calms him. I did not peel the tape because tape is a loud language. I closed the door and returned to the kitchen with a smile that felt like a uniform. Rowan wiped the counter with slow strokes that meant do not ask me to explain. I said Jace and Theo had both stayed late, after closing once, and walked me home that other time, not the night people kept sharing. I dragged Miles's name behind my teeth and swallowed it. Rowan said help can be clean or not clean. I said this help was clean and clumsy, not wrong. He said words can be clean and still not fit facts. I said we should not talk like judges. He closed the laptop. The spreadsheet disappeared like a lid sliding into place. The guest room looked too neat for a room in use. The duvet showed one sharp crease like a held breath. The desk drawer clicked from the inside when I stepped near. The sound was small and absolute. I said I just needed a pen for work. Rowan said he would bring one later. I said, locks shout even when they whisper. He said locks speak whatever the room needs them to speak. I touched my wrist and counted my pulse. I told myself I was not a villain. I said out loud that we could fix it with light and steadiness and maybe a small post. He said we should not post. I said silence reads like guilt. He said silence reads like respect. He carried his keys in his hand and not his pocket. A new key shone like a small blade in the morning light. I asked what it opened. He said, organizing. I said organizing felt like leaving. He said he had to go. He slid his phone into his pocket. A message preview at the top flashed the thread title, follow-up, and then vanished before I could blink. I said we were okay. He said we could still be kind. The door latch clicked like a clean bite. The apartment swallowed the sound and kept it. I rinsed both mugs and left them to dry. I stood in the doorway and looked at the wall planner. Friday was circled in red. The circle looked like a mouth saying a word I did not want to hear. The printer woke by itself and slid out a single blank page with the soft sound of a sigh. I held the page up to the window. It told me nothing. I set it down like a place card for a guest who might or might not arrive. I opened the shared photo album to distract my mind and found a new image in a plain folder. It showed the edge of our hallway table and a clipboard. The top of the sheet said only statement, no letterhead, no seal. Just that one word with a calm face. I told myself it was a utility plan. I told myself he was preparing for the baby we had not planned and could still love. I closed the album and put my phone face down, because faces lie when they need to lie. I dressed for work in a soft sweater that photographs well and left the apartment like I had somewhere steady to be. The elevator mirror showed a woman who had learned how to hold her chin like a promise. In the lobby, a neighbor with a stroller glanced up and away in the same breath, like my face was a headline she chose not to read. I told myself headlines fade if you do not feed them. I stepped into the morning that smelled like wet sidewalks and coffee, and I promised the day I would behave. The co-working hub lobby smelled like citrus and polite ambition. I said hello to two founders and took pleasure in their quick recognition. Wren had already placed welcome cards and a new pen at my station. She said I looked pale. I said I was focused. She asked if last night's tags had died down. I said tags are weather. She said the forecast looked like a stalled front. I said the baby would bring calm and new eyes. She did not argue. She turned her phone and asked if I wanted to preview a carousel. I said yes. She showed 4 frames. In the first, Miles stood at the club patio rail, too close by half an inch. In the second, I leaned toward the camera and the city behind me blurred into silver. In the third, someone had added Brave Village under our faces. In the fourth, a caption asked whether good friends should say no sometimes. I felt my mouth make a sentence and then delete it before it reached air. I told Wren I would post context later. She said, maybe not today. I said, silence lets other stories win. She said, sometimes that is mercy. Ms. Bryn, our manager, lifted her hand in a gentle yes that meant come by soon. I nodded. I opened the event calendar and typed tidy notes about chair counts and extension cords and a buffer between panels. I replaced the word community 3 times with the word guests, because community sounds clingy when people are angry. My phone buzzed with a calendar bar that did not feel like mine. Paper drop 10:45 a.m. The letters sat there like teeth and then withdrew. Wren saw my face change and passed me a bottle of water without comment. Across the lobby, a courier in a neutral jacket stood with a clipboard and spoke to the receptionist in a voice made of felt. The elevator bell dinged like a tiny bell in a toy church. I told myself normal buildings have normal sounds. At 10:20, I walked to Ms. Bryn's office. The little room held 2 soft chairs and a fiddle-leaf fig that always looked like it had eaten a good breakfast. She asked how I was. I said grateful. She asked if I had seen the rooftop tags in circulation. I said I had. She said our brand thrives on quiet utility, not noise. I said I would keep my accounts on low flame. She said thank you. She asked if I needed support. I said I was fine. She said fine can be a bridge to better or a wall. I said today it would be a bridge. She nodded once with her whole face and let me go. Back at the desk, Ren said she had rearranged the afternoon bookings so I could take a breath between check-ins. I said thank you. She set a folder near my elbow. Inside were sign-in sheets and a light blue highlighter already uncapped. The courier checked his watch and turned one envelope over and then back, like it had a front and back worth considering. I remembered the harbor alert and could not remember if it existed or if I had invented it. I reminded myself that imagination is a fork you should not stick into outlets. I filed the folder and made my smile ready for guests. I took lunch at the corner deli and ate outside so the wind could pull frustration away from my face. The owner asked when I was due. I said sometime soon. He gave me one extra napkin, as if paper could change weather. I watched a bus ease around a double-parked van like a patient animal. When I returned, Ren said HR wanted to confirm tomorrow's schedule. I said it was already on the sheet. She nodded toward the HR door. I nodded back and walked toward it, and then away, because motion counted as progress, even if it ended where it began. I lifted my phone and opened the shared album to check a seating plan. A new image sat there again, and nothing about the app told me why. It showed the top of the clipboard and the one word at the top of the sheet, statement. The lighting looked like our hallway lighting at night. My throat made a small sound I did not let out. I closed the album and set the phone face down so the table could carry it for a while. I told myself I would control tone. I told myself tone is the house where truth sleeps. The door latch clicks as Rowan leaves. A message preview titled Follow-up flashes and auto-vanishes on his phone. And at work, a paper drop alert pings and disappears before I can breathe twice. I told myself a crowd would rinse rumor, so I signed out of my station early and took the rooftop check at 5. The sky wore a clear blue and made the glass towers look like clean water. I tested chairs and aligned a line of small candles so the camera would catch glow and not shadow. Ren came up with a clipboard and said we should keep the night very quiet. I said, quiet still needs a scene partner. She said the partner could be silence. I laughed in a way that meant I heard her and would do what I wanted. 2 freelancers set to speaker near the rail, and a test beat ran a path across the deck. Music rose to the line where conversations must choose a lane. I told myself I knew how to hold my face like a calm stop sign. Guests arrived with end-of-day shoulders and name tags on crooked. Someone ordered a row of seltzers and set them near the ice like bright punctuation. A woman in a denim jacket raised her phone and performed a slow pan that obviously lived for tags. The tiny red record dot winked and then stayed awake. I sent Rowan a photo of the skyline and typed that I wanted to talk tonight without scripts. Delivered sat there like a sealed envelope no one opened. I told myself he was driving. I told myself hope is a plant that needs the right window. A client near the rail said the pregnant one should give a toast. I said hope is shy, and I wanted it to grow slowly. Then I lifted my glass anyway because no is a word that bends when people chant. I said we are grateful and careful, and we build small good things here. Phones tilted up. The record lights felt like quiet mouths. Someone shouted for a shout-out to our community support network. Several faces angled to the door like they expected Miles to push it open on cue. He did not. I held my smile at the exact size that says I control the frame. Ren made herself heavier beside me, which made the circle thinner. She asked if I needed water. I said I needed tomorrow. She said tomorrow only arrives after tonight. A woman near the planters asked if I was the one who believed in village dads. Her tone was curious, not sharp. I said I believed in many kinds of support, and the kind I believed in most was the kind that stays quiet. She said quiet does not trend. I said sometimes not trending is the point. She flicked her camera to the skyline and then back to my face like a coin. I turned my body in a way that made the city fill the lens. The red dot kept its small stare. I told myself dots are not gods. We moved to a family restaurant after 7 because a cousin had booked the long table by the window. The room was warm with steam and talk. The reflection in the glass put us in a second room where our doubles behaved. The server poured water and asked about appetizers. I said bread is good because chewing keeps people from picking at words. Rowan pulled out a chair for his mother, Teresa, and fixed a napkin for his niece, Nola. He looked like a teacher who saved patience for rainy days. Oksana, my mother, made her phone face down and then up and then down again. Anton, my father, complimented the server's tie with a focus that looked like prayer. I told a little story about a supplier who sent the wrong size tablecloths and how we overlapped too and sold it as a design choice. The story did not land. It lay under the plates and looked at me. At the far end, a cousin showed another cousin a reel. The volume was low. The faces were not. The reel cut from a rooftop pan to the club patio, where a laughing woman stood too close to a man with a friendly jawline. My throat felt tight. I drank water. Teresa asked me if I was sleeping. I said a little. She said that made sense. Oksana asked if the baby had everything it needed. I said almost. She said she could help with a list. I said a list was a gift. Rowan asked Nola about her science project and helped her spell the word magnet without making it a lesson. I watched his hands and hated that my eyes were wet. When the bread arrived, the room softened. A neighbor from church passed the window and gave me a brief nod that meant she knew and wished she did not. I kept my head still. I asked Rowan if he wanted the soup. He said he was fine. I said fine is a small word with sharp corners. He said it is also a true word. I said I missed laughing with him. He said laughter has seasons. I said this one feels cold. He said cold can be honest. The words lay on the table like a ruler between two kids. Nola colored a circle that touched the edge and came back to itself. She said circles are strong shapes. I said they are. She asked if the truth was a circle or a line. I stared at the salt shaker and said the truth is a thing that fits inside both. Teresa set a folded napkin in my hand and said nothing. The napkin felt heavy in a way that made me sit straighter. After dinner, we walked to the park. The night smelled like wet wood and clean dirt. Children zipped past on scooters, and a dog made a proud circle with a stick in its mouth. We took a bench that did not tilt. Nola climbed up between us and held a crayon like a wand that did not need batteries. She asked why adults say a thing meant nothing if they hide it. She said it like a math problem, with a right answer. I said, sometimes people are clumsy. She said clumsy is when you bump a chair, not when you hide a phone. Rowan tied her shoe and said she asked good questions. He did not look at me when he said it. He looked at the knot and the small shoe and the ground under it. We rode the metro back because cars felt like too many doors. The window taught me my face again. My phone vibrated once. A preview from a thread called Follow Up flashed and erased itself like a trick. I opened the app and saw only old notes about a lost key and a water delivery. I closed the app and watched my reflection until it looked like a person I could forgive. The train slowed, sighed, and opened. We rode 2 more stops and did not speak. The silence felt like a floor and not a hole. I decided I could stand on it if I kept my shoulders level. The manager messages me for a quick word at 4:20 p.m. as the elevator bell dings. At dinner, a chant for the truth nearly starts. Phones lift, a camera flash pops, and in the night outside, our door footsteps pause. The drawer clicks shut, and the faint smell of printer toner returns. I told myself a bigger room would rinse the rumor, so I leaned into the event our client moved from the rooftop to the community center hall. The space smelled like floor cleaner and sugar. Folding tables held neat rows of cups, and a rented mic waited on a stand. I checked the extension cords and placed a small sign that said, "Guests only," in polite letters. Ren set a clipboard by the door, and said the room should not become a story. I said, rooms are strong when people stand straight. She said people bend when a camera asks them to bend. I said I would stay level. The hall lights buzzed the way school lights buzz, steady but not kind. People arrived with paper name tags and the glow that comes from being filmed. I walked near the gift table and arranged a line of paper flowers so the lens would like our angles. A cousin's friend held up a phone and pointed it toward me. I turned so the banner behind me read better. My mother came in wearing brightness like armor. She said we would take 3 photos before my face got tired. I said 2 would be enough. She said this was not the night for less. She pressed a friendly stranger into our small circle and said the word community twice, like an incantation. My father shook hands, as if handshakes could glue a room back together. He asked if the mic worked. I touched the switch, and the speaker hissed a little and then went calm again. Rowan arrived with Teresa. He chose a chair on the aisle and kept his posture normal, not stiff and not loose. He said hello to my parents, and then stepped back. Teresa brought a plain folded blanket for a gift. She said soft things matter when nights are hard. I told her thank you with my eyes, because my throat felt busy. She looked at my face and said nothing else. I wanted to believe that her quiet meant I could climb out of this without a scrape. Then a guest near the snack table called for a few words, and the room turned like a flock. The chant started small, the kind people think is a joke. Someone said truth toast and clapped twice. Someone else clapped 4 times. The group found a rhythm, because groups always do. I held up my hand as if I were holding a stop sign and not air. I said we were here to thank our guests and our staff and the life we were building together. I said we believe in second chances and clean mornings. I did not say the other things. Phones lifted like light posts. The little red record dots looked like eyes that did not blink. A woman in a denim jacket stepped closer to the mic stand. She said the internet had questions. She said the questions would go away if I said one sentence and meant it. I asked what sentence. She said say that it was nothing, and that I was sorry, and that my husband mattered more than a party. The mic squealed a warning. I glanced at Rowan. He watched the floor near his shoes, not the show. I felt heat rise into my face and told myself heat is a kind of light. I took the mic and said, we had let our friends talk over us and we would not do that tonight. I said the people who mattered would see that we were careful and kind. I said I had made one mistake after a few drinks, and I would show it had no shape. The mic turned the last word thin. Phone stayed up. Miles slipped in through a side door that always sticks, and the door gave him away with a quiet scrape. He lifted his hand like a man who believes his hand can change a story. He said with his eyes that he wanted the floor. I said with the angle of my shoulders that he would not have it. He put his palms up as if offering nothing. The denim jacket pivoted and filmed both our faces in one frame. People shifted to find that shot. My mother raised her chin at me and tried to will me into victory. My father made a slow circle with his finger, like he wanted the night to turn and rewind. Wren moved behind me so I could feel her shape like a guardrail. She said in a low voice that I should step away from the mic. I said I had it. She said the room was hungry. I said I was not food. A guest shouted, "Ask her about the patio," and laughter tried to build, then broke against the back wall and slid down. I said we would not answer bait, and I smiled in a way the camera could not argue with. I placed the mic back on the stand and stepped a foot to the side so the frame would catch the banner and not my pulse. The denim jacket tilted up for a vertical shot. The red dot stayed awake. Another guest held up a still image on her phone. Me on the club patio, Miles half a step nearer than a friend should stand. The caption Brave Village under our tilted heads. The still sat next to a fresh shot of me near the mic. The 2 images made a simple math the crowd did not need words to do. I said drink light and camera angles can lie. Someone near the back said, people do not lie when they are sober and holding lenses. I said we were done with this topic. The room kept wanting its treat. Rowan stood just then, Not fast, not slow. He picked up the folded blanket Teresa had brought and set it on a chair. He said with his body that he would not let the night feed on anyone. He took a step toward the exit. Phones pointed like sunflowers turning to a new light. Teresa followed. She touched my shoulder once in passing, a soft pressure that was not comfort and not blame. It was a reminder that hands can say stop. I wanted to hold her hand, but I held the air instead. Miles took his palm-down shrug back into his pockets. The denim jacket panned to catch Rowan's back as he left. The red dot kept watching until the door closed. I stood in a pool of ordinary light and told the room the cookies were very good and the parking was better than usual. And thank you for coming on a weekday. People laughed because they needed a way out. They found one and filed through it. Wren unplugged the speaker and wrapped the cord around her arm with tight loops. She said nothing, because there was nothing that words could do now. I stacked paper plates and focused on corners. Corners are honest when faces are not. The mic squeals. The denim jacket's record light stays on. A guest raises a side-by-side still. The crowd starts a chant for the truth toast, and cameras keep rolling as Rowan rises and walks out. I wanted to believe the worst volume had dropped, so I met my parents the next afternoon at their place before a small family dinner at our apartment. My mother set out plates as if plates could protect us. She said we would serve early and keep the visit short. I said short sounded safe. She said safe looked good on me. My father revised his toast 3 times under his breath. He said he would not use the word lesson. I said, thank you. He said, family learns its way around weather. I said, storms pass when people let them. He said people pass before storms do if they run the wrong way. We both smiled because we both knew we were not funny. At home, I moved through rooms with a cloth and too much care. I straightened the runner in the hall twice. I set 2 mugs on opposite counters without meaning to. I moved one and then moved it back because moving lies. The wall planner's red circle around Friday still looked like a mouth. I wanted to cross it out and could not. The printer light blinked once like it wanted permission. The guest room desk drawer clicked when the door hinge spoke. I said I needed a pen. Rowan said he would bring one later. I said later felt like a third person living with us. He said later felt like a rule that keeps minds from breaking. He washed his hands in the kitchen and dried them with slow care, like a person making a plan in his body, so he would not need to make a speech. Teresa arrived with a simple salad and a steady face. She said she could stay for 1 hour. I said I appreciated her time. She said kindness is a choice, not a trick. She placed the salad on the counter and looked at the mugs, and then looked at me, and then looked away. My mother came in a minute later, with a dish that steamed and smelled like a meal you eat when you need to stop running. She said we could take 1 photo to prove the world wrong. I said we should not perform. She said the world was already filming. I said our house did not need another lens. She said lenses love houses like ours. My father held a small bottle of seltzer, like it was champagne, and asked if a toast would help. Rowan said the table would like quiet better than bubbles. We sat. Forks made the soft sound that forks make when people choose not to raise their voices. My mother tried a laugh about how all babies look like their grandfathers for a month, and then their real faces arrive later. The laugh had no grip. My father asked Rowan about routes at work. Rowan said he was testing a new system for scheduling deliveries. He said initials and dates kept the process clean. He said clean meant fair. He did not look at me when he said fair. He looked at the window and then at his plate. I said I was sorry that a party had become a hammer. I said I had let drinks and noise turn into a thing with edges. I said I would fix the air. My mother said air fixes itself if you open the right doors. Teresa said doors are not solutions when the room is the problem. My father asked if a neighbor was still lending us the extra stroller. I said the neighbor had moved. The table accepted this like it accepted salt. Nola arrived with Teresa's sister to drop off a book she had borrowed from Rowan about birds. She stood near the chair with the blanket and held the book with both hands like a ceremony. She asked why adults call something small if it can break a big thing. She said it the way children ask the weather, why it forgets them. I said adults use words to make days softer. She said soft words are not the same as truth. She looked at Rowan and said she hoped he was not sad. He said he was careful. She nodded, like someone who had learned to trust careful people. She left with a wave that did not try to fix anyone. My mother took a breath as if preparing to speak to a stage. She said we needed a plan the family could understand. She said she would call friends and fold the noise into a new shape. Teresa said she would not join any plan made of noise. She said she would bring rides and rest if needed, and nothing shaped like a show. My mother said silence looks like surrender. Teresa said silence looks like respect. My father said perhaps there is a third word we are missing. Rowan said we did not need another word. He said we needed rules. He said he would follow rules because rules keep people safe. He did not list them. He did not ask for agreement. He ate his salad like a person does an ordinary thing on purpose to remind the room that living continues. I carried plates to the sink to stop my hands from gesturing. I rinsed a glass and set it down gently so it would not make a sound that might become a statement. The laptop on the side table blinked a small toast in the corner. File uploaded successfully. I pretended not to see it. My mother pointed at the screen and asked if I was working in the middle of dinner. I said no. She said then someone else was. Teresa watched the blink fade. She did not speak. The oven fan clicked on by itself and hummed like a patient machine. After dessert, we moved to the balcony for air. The evening had that soft blue that makes windows feel honest. The city noise fell into the kind of hush that follows two sirens. My father said he believed in second chances. He said he also believed in clean lines. He said clean lines keep people from walking into the same wall twice. My mother said images heal faster than apologies. Teresa said apologies are not medicine if they do not include change. Rowan said he was done arguing. He said we would not rehearse the night again. He said he would handle this properly. The word properly sat between us like a folded paper with a map inside. I said properly sounded like a threat, and he said it sounded like a plan. I said plans can be weapons. He said plans can be walls that keep wind from the crib. He looked at the skyline and not at me. Teresa put her hand on the balcony rail and said the family would respect the process he chose. My mother said the family would prefer a quieter process that did not include lobbies or witnesses. Teresa said lobbies were not the point. The point was boundaries. My father said he would help with any house tasks that needed hands. Rowan thanked him without theatre. Inside, the planner on the wall caught the last light. The red circle around Friday looked darker than before. I reached up with a pen and almost drew a line through it. I put the pen down. I said we could speak to a counsellor first. Rowan said he had heard my request. He did not say yes. He did not say no. He looked at the door and then at the mugs and then at the drawer. The drawer clicked from the other room like a person clearing a throat before reading. My mother opened her mouth to deliver an ultimatum that sounded like a blessing. She said she would call a family friend to manage optics. Teresa said she would not participate in any call about optics. She said she would attend exactly one thing, a process that respected everyone involved. The air in the kitchen shifted, light to heavy, the way air does before a storm. My mother glanced at me, and I knew she wanted me to pick her side out loud. I said we would not split the room like that. She looked wounded, because a person who lives by shows reads refusal as betrayal. The oven fan clicked off. The house listened to itself. A car outside idled and then moved on. A phone on the counter lit with a calendar bar that did not belong to me. Atrium, 6:35 p.m. The glow lasted 2 seconds and left a shape behind it in my chest. I poured water into 2 glasses, and then poured one back, because one glass was the honest number. I handed the other to Rowan. He said, "Thank you." He did not drink. We stood at the edge of the next hour like people looking at a river. My mother picked up her bag and said she would call me in the morning. My father said he would come by after lunch with tools in case a shelf needed fixing. Teresa said she would be available if rides were needed. She did not pat my arm. She did not hug me. She gave me her calm face the way someone passes a person a coat before they step into wind. The door closed after them, and the apartment settled into a quiet that did not feel safe or cruel. It felt like a flaw. Nola asks why adults call small things small if they break big things. Teresa states she will only respect a process, not a show. Later, a calendar reminder. Atrium 6:35 p.m. glows and fades while the desk drawer clicks shut in the next room. I told myself small errands could smooth a rough day, so I wrote a list. Milk, bread, fruit, and a better face. Lists make rooms feel obedient. The apartment waited with careful quiet. 2 mugs stood on opposite counters, like neighbors who no longer wave. Rowan came from the hall with his phone. He washed his hands as if the water could carry last night away. He said good morning. I said good morning. He glanced at the wall planner without touching the red circle around Friday. I asked if we could talk before I left. He said later would be better. I said later felt like a wall. He said later felt like respect. His phone lit with private and went still. He did not answer. A printer near the table warmed and fed out a single blank page, slow and sure. I joked that it was our mutual agreement. He said sometimes nothing is the only honest line. On the stairs, the air smelled like dust and heat. A neighbor on the landing pressed her back to the rail to let me pass, then smiled as if apologies could be passed like mints. I smiled back, like a person who still knew how. In the pharmacy queue, the woman in front of me watched a reel with the sound off. The caption floated over a frieze of the club patio, the kind that says more than it writes. She tilted the phone away when she felt my eyes. I told myself strangers are dusted mirrors. The pharmacist asked if I wanted the store brand of vitamins. I said yes to the cheaper one because choosing anything helps. My phone buzzed, and the name No Caller ID pulsed once and vanished like a fish breaking water. At the supermarket, the cart clacked at every seam in the floor. By the milk, a neighbor from 2 buildings over asked if I had settled on a pediatrician. I said we were reviewing. She said timeliness mattered. I said calm mattered. She looked at my stomach, and then the shelf label and said, prices keep changing. At checkout, the small screen near the gum looped local clips and waited 1 beat too long on the rooftop frame from last week. The cashier asked if I needed a bag. I said no, then yes, then no again. He slid the milk toward me and said he hoped the day would be light. I said I hoped the same and meant it for once. Back home, the stairwell hummed. The door opened easily, like a calm mouth. The apartment smelled faintly of printer toner, as if paper had been warm recently. I lined bottles on the counter. In the guest room, the desk drawer clicked the moment the hinge spoke. I said I only wanted a pen. He said he would bring it later. I said later felt like a third person living with us. He said later felt like a rule that keeps people from breaking. On the kitchen corkboard, a sticky note in his square handwriting said, "Bring forms." The laptop on the side table flashed a small toast. File uploaded successfully, and then swallowed the proof. The wall planner's red circle around Friday looked darker than ink should. He took his jacket from the chair. The new key on his ring flashed. He said he had things to do. I asked if he wanted me to come along. He said today was not a day for that. I said he was punishing me by being calm. He said he was not punishing anyone. I said silence cuts when you hold it that way. He said silence shields when a person needs one. I followed him a few steps, like a person trying not to hold a sleeve. He did not pull away because I did not touch. He placed his phone on the counter for a second. Across the room, a cloud window blinked and went still. He picked up the phone again. I said I would delete every post and ask friends to delete theirs. He said I could decide for myself. I asked if he believed me. He said belief grows slower than apology. I wanted a different word from him, any word that looked like mercy. He checked the time and looked at the door. I asked if we could at least plan tonight. He said tonight would not be loud. I said I could be better than the person in those frames. He said people are better or worse. The process is what keeps them from hurting each other while they decide. I told him the phrase process made me feel like a problem. He said process makes problems smaller. I said I did not want to be small. He said he did not want anyone to be hurt. He looked at the planner again. A calendar reminder flashed on his screen and then dimmed. Atrium, 6:40 p.m. The word atrium felt like a room I had never seen but would soon. I asked what it was. He said organizing. I said organizing sounded like moving. He said organizing sounded like breathing. He turned toward the door. I asked if he was going to speak to Miles. He said he had nothing to say to Miles. I said, then say something to me. He said he would handle this properly. The words landed on the table between the mugs like a folded letter with my name on it. He put on his shoes, and the door latch made its clean bite. He left without force. His calm line lands. I will handle this properly. A calendar reminder. Atrium, 6:40 p.m. glows and fades. The printer cools. Footsteps pause outside our door, then move on. I decided not to wait for whatever atrium meant. Waiting felt like drowning in quiet water. I messaged Ren a small heart and asked if she could cover an evening check-in. She said, of course, and added, "Are you safe?" I said yes because the truth was yes. I took the metro to the office district where glass lobbies stay bright even when the sky is tired. The office tower lobby held a concierge desk and the kind of chairs that do not let you slouch. People crossed the floor with the soft insistence of people who belong to calendars. A fountain whispered the sound of coins, though there were none. I stood near a column and practiced a sentence under my breath. I made one mistake and it will never touch you again. The sentence sounded thin and eager. I tried another. I used the word freedom when I meant fear, and I'm sorry. That one fit better. I counted 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. Breathing is math, and math ignores gossip. The elevator bell chimed once, and a group in conference lanyards spilled out. Mr. Venn, the concierge, with a quiet tie, looked up and nodded as if to say, "We are all trying to be polite." Rowan arrived with the steady step he uses when he does not want to break a place that already hurts. He said my name. I said his. He did not come close enough to make a scene. He thanked Mr. Venn for the time. The words fell like clean coins. I began the sentence I had practiced and managed the middle of it. He listened with his hands resting on the back of a chair. He did not interrupt. When I reached the part where I said fear, his eyes closed for a slow second. Not pained, not pleased, just a human blink that lasted longer than most. A person in a neutral jacket approached from the left with a calm face and a clipboard. The voice was even, the way public voices are when they carry instructions. The person asked me to confirm my full name. I confirmed it because names are anchors, and I needed one. The person said a formal line about identification and delivery. An envelope changed hands with a measured slide. The paper felt heavier than paper. A pen moved over a small line. The air accepted the movement. The moment became a fact. Rowan thanked the staff member. He kept his voice low enough not to splash. I opened the envelope enough to read the first page. The words did not shout. They arranged themselves the way rules arrange themselves when people ask them to. It was a divorce petition with temporary financial and possession orders. It named the present, not the past. It described who would occupy the apartment, which days while we arranged the next stage, which account paid which bill for now, and the condition that our communication stay respectful. It included a no posting clause about the dispute while the matter proceeded. It said we would use a third party for necessary scheduling decisions until we chose a longer plan. It said the orders applied immediately. I looked up. He kept his eyes on the chair back to avoid pinning me to anything. I said this was public humiliation. I said lobbies are stages. I said witnesses turn pain into souvenirs. He said this was clarity. He said we needed rules to keep harm from growing. He said I deserved a process that did not require guesswork, and that he deserved one too. He said we could be careful now, and that would be a kind of kindness later. He did not touch me. He did not step forward or back. He only stood, the way a person stands, when the words have already been chosen, by a room larger than the two of us. The fountain whispered. Someone's heels clicked past, and then softened into carpet. Mr. Venn wrote the time in a discreet log, and closed it with a small, quiet sound. I tried to speak, and said something about how one night cannot erase a life. The sentence lost itself halfway through. The page in my hand kept its shape. I read the line about possession of the home on alternating blocks of days, and the line about interim finances, simple and boring and merciful. I read the line about cooperation, and the line about no contact with Miles, beyond what the process required to collect truth about that night, which was nothing now. I read the final line about no online references to the case. The words had the sound of rails laid on ground, so trains do not run without purpose. I said I would delete every post and ask others to remove theirs, and accept that many would not. He said I could choose for myself. He said choices have weight now. I said I hated that sentence and loved that it was true. He said he would come by on his days to collect what he needed and leave receipts when he did. I said that was unnecessary. He said it helped him think. The phrase was the same as the first morning. It no longer hurt. It made sense, and making sense was worse. The person in the neutral jacket stepped a half pace back and became furniture again. Two visitors crossed toward the elevators and kept their eyes on the screen with flaws and arrows. A child in a winter hat asked the concierge for directions to a dentist and got them with a small smile. The lobby held us and did not judge us. It only kept being a lobby. Rowan nodded once to me and once to the room. He said thank you to the process as if it were a person. He turned toward the revolving door. I wanted to stop him with a word that did not exist yet. He walked with that even step that refuses to break a place. The door turned and accepted him into the bright outside. The elevator bell chimed again to mark nothing and everything. I looked down at the petition and saw the temporary orders land in my life like furniture I had not ordered but would now live with. The air did not applaud or boo, it simply continued. I folded the page back into the envelope and felt the weight against my palm. Service in the office tower lobby, divorce petition with temporary orders, public, witnessed, the elevator bell dings, the result lands, cut to black. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.